Hey guys, it's been an interesting day. We're somewhere in the foothills of Salt Lake City on a bike path, and we've got the original Magnum Peak over here, very popular bike, 28 mile per hour speed pedelec. This one's 27.5. Okay, so the wheel size is a little bit smaller. It's actually kind of a compromise between 29ers and the old school 26-inch. 26-inch, it's nimble, it's maneuverable, but you don't get that lowered attack angle that helps you just ride over obstacles, or the same momentum, or the air volume that adds some compression. So most of the plus size tires use 27.5-inch diameter because the tires plus size 3 inches, they give you more air volume and they need even more like height. So anyway, I'm giving you a lot of information on wheel size because this 29er it's basically the same bike. It just has larger wheel diameter. So you might be like, well, why is that worth it? Like, just the wheels? It's not quite that easy. The frame is also a little bit larger. Okay, so not only do the wheels elevate the frame, but the frame size, the tubing and everything is a little bit bigger. About 21.5 inches there on that seat tube versus 19. And then that elevates the standover height. Reach is actually very similar. You've still got 110 millimeter stem, so you're still a little bit more forward. This is a sportier bike. It's a trail bike, hardtail right here. Not the kind of thing that you'd want to take over really rocky terrain or really steep downhill sections, but great for trails like this where it's relatively packed. You've got some rocks and stuff, and these tires are going to handle it all right. And you've got a suspension fork with 100 millimeters of travel to deal with that too. Or you can be like me and use the bike for getting to work and getting around town during the week, and then occasionally on the weekends you can hit the trails. So you go out, take the rack off the bike, maybe take the bottle cage off if you've added one, and this bike becomes really trail capable. You've got Schwalbe Smart Sam tires here, 29 by 2.25. Plus size starts at like 2.6 to 3.0. So, you know, they're kind of standard trail tires. Great knobs. Going to be fairly quick and maneuverable, maybe not quite as floaty. You know, if you get into really soft stuff or sand, like these aren't going to be ideal for that. But for hard packed trails, again, like really capable. Standard 100 millimeter hub width, 9 millimeter skewer with quick release on the front, so you can take that wheel off. Because this is a hub motor driven bike, there's no quick release on the rear, and it's using sort of the old school cable coming through the axle. It sticks out the side, and that's why they've got this derailleur guard. So if the bike tips or maybe you lay it down on the side, it's going to protect your derailleur and that cable. Because if that cable breaks, you're kind of done. I don't think that's the kind of thing you can fix very easily. You might have to work with Magnum for a new wheel. Trying to spoke a new motor into the existing wheel is going to be very difficult and time consuming. So you want to be really careful with that. And again, having that derailleur guard is a really good thing in my opinion. We've got Shimano Acera derailleur in the rear, 11 to 32 teeth, 8 sprockets, and then 3 chain rings up front. So there's quite a bit of variation in pedal cadence. To me, this is sort of overkill. A lot of electric bikes these days, especially mountain bikes, are doing 1 by 10, 1 by 11, even 1 by 12. SRAM has I think it's the like X10, or it's an e-bike specific drivetrain that's only 8 sprockets in the rear, but the jumps are much bigger. So the idea is that you have motor support. You don't need to shift constantly through all these gears and have all these little, you know, micro differences between your pedal cadence. You have motor support, so the jumps can be bigger, lighter weight, fewer shifting actions. In this case, we're going with the other approach where it's like you've got tons of range in terms of, you know, torque for climbing or hitting higher speeds. And I think that actually makes pretty good sense on this bike because it's a speed pedelec. A lot of the other bikes I'm talking about, some of them have mid-drives, and you can't really have additional chain rings on a mid-drive. You know, you can, like Yamaha's done it a couple times, but there's a lot of force right there, and 2 derailleurs, that's extra weight and complexity. So in this case, it's a hub motor. When you switch gears, it doesn't really matter. It's not that you're not going to be banging and really putting the pressure on that chain and those sprockets and derailleur because the motor is completely separate. You don't get the mechanical advantage and the efficiency of a mid-drive, but again, shifting is a little bit easier, and you have a speed pedelec setup. Very few of those mid-drive bikes, especially mountain bikes, are speed pedelecs, and that means this thing can go up to 28 miles per hour in pedal assist mode and it has a throttle. That's another thing a lot of the mid-drives don't have. So if you're someone who wants some help getting started or a little bit of extra juice climbing that hill, you can just reach over and press down on that throttle at any time. It overrides all of the 6 levels of pedal assist, and it works in 0 mode. So it's something you want to be kind of careful with, because if you get the bike out of your car, or maybe you just got off the bike and it's still powered on, and then you go to grab it or bump it, the bike could take off on you. It's a very capable motor. It's from Das Kit, 500 watts nominal, peak 700 watts, and they say it puts out 90 newton meters of torque, which to me is like almost ridiculous, because these mid-drives say, you know, 75, 80 newton meters, and that's a lot. Most hub motors, I'm used to hearing like 40 newton meters or something. Yeah, it's a capable motor. Yet it feels pretty powerful, but take that with a grain of salt. I'm you know, spouting off all the statistics and stuff. I've measured everything on this bike, but I'm just sort of taking the word for the motor, and I think it depends on the wheel size. Like that one, the 27.5 inch wheel diameter, it's smaller, so you have a better mechanical advantage. With the 29er, it has to move this really big, like wide wheel, and it's not going to be quite as capable. So again, when you approach this bike, these are minor things. I really think it comes down to how you want to ride the bike, whether you want to be able to go fast, whether you need the throttle, and the price point. $19.99 for both of these bikes. Really good price point, and that's reflected in some of the components. Again, Acera, it's 3 steps up from the bottom, so it's like Tourney, Altus, Acera, versus a lot of the higher end mid-drives come with Derailleur XT, SLX type of stuff. Those are, you know, mid-level versus sort of the lower level stuff. Still very capable, but I love that, you know, Magnum sells primarily through dealers. So if you get this, they can dial it in, dial in the fit, and help you maintain it over time, because your shifter cables are going to stretch. You're just going to need to keep them, not just 1, but 2 derailleurs, you know, working properly over time. Love that there's a slap guard right here. I appreciate these Wellgo aluminum alloy platform pedals. They've got these nubs that help you to stay intact and just keep that contact. They're also a little bit bigger, so if you're riding this bike, especially a 29er, you're probably a taller person, possibly have bigger feet as well. So those pedals give you good like power. As you're pedaling, you're not going to be like sliding off of it, or the traction issue that I talked about before. Weight on this bike is relatively well centered. It's like, you know, some weight in that motor back there, and I think they rated it like 10 pounds. I wasn't able to weigh it myself, but that's the feedback they gave me. I did weigh the battery, about 9.2 pounds, and the overall weight of this bike, about 57.5 pounds, 58 pounds. Not too bad, considering how big this battery is. 48 volts, 13 amp hours. 48 volt systems tend to be really efficient in terms of energy transfer, and we have a relatively high wattage going through this thing, high amps I should say, energy flow. It's a pure sine wave converter in the controller, so it's not like a square wave, I guess. It's more of an on-off switch. It's not as fluid, it tends to be a little louder. This is smoother. There are more MOSFETs. Again, all the specs back there for people who really want to dig in and explore that. But the feel of it, qualitatively speaking, it is good. It's smooth. It is powerful, especially once you get up to speed a little bit. And as an internally geared motor, there's a little bit more friction and kind of a sound, but it's not nearly as loud as some that I've experienced. And it's relatively compact and lightweight compared to like a gearless direct drive. So I appreciate that. You might notice that these spokes are a little bit fatter. 13 gauge versus 14 gauge, that's sort of standard. 36 hole on the rims, so spreading that pressure out, just giving you more toughness. 100 millimeters on this SR Suntour XCM 30 suspension fork with compression adjust and lockout, as well as preload. So that scenario I was talking about before, if you wanted to add a rack, Magnum has a rack. I think it's only 50 bucks, and then it connects right here to the frame. It's a nice looking rack, and it gives you the ability to add a trunk bag or some panniers if you're commuting. And one of the other areas that I really like about the latest batch of Magnum Peaks is that they both come with 180 millimeter hydraulic disc brakes, versus the old ones had 180 up front, 160 in the rear. So having that extra stopping power for both the speed and the weight, and then just the technical nature of even trail riding. No, it's not like all mountain, but still, you want to have those brakes ready for those moments that you need to stop. Tapered head tube, so a little bit more strength, wider diameter at the bottom, 1.125 to 1.5 inches. And these are now using, I think what is it, sealed cartridge. for the headset. So a little bit more durable, especially in a situation where you're dealing with water. I like the ergonomic grips. They're locking. They're from Velo. And yeah, I'm actually hanging out here with Callaway. He works at Magnum, and he's been riding with me a little bit. I wanted to get your feedback on those grips, because this is like your first ride with them, right?
Yeah, that was my first ride on a mountain bike with those ergonomic grips, and honestly, I was really impressed. I was definitely sold on the traditional grips,
like flat.
But
yeah.
I mean, honestly, I'm considering some for my bike because I need some. Mine are worn out, so.
Yeah, they're kind of cushy. Like there's a little bit of, what do we think? Like softer rubber here. Gray. The gray parts are not quite as firm as the black, and then you've got a little, almost like an end piece there. It's not enough to really, you know, it's not like a bullhorn thing at the end, but it gives you a nice firm grip. We've got a bell, we've got the shifters on both sides now. A little bit more going on this cockpit, because in addition to shifting and having that trigger throttle and the display, we also have motor inhibitors on both brake levers. So that's another really nice thing to have, especially given that this is a cadence sensing pedal assist bike. A lot of the mid-drives that I keep talking about they're just more real, like a true electric mountain bike versus a trail bike. It's kind of a compromise here. They're measuring your wheel speed, pedal cadence, and pedal torque, whereas this is just measuring cadence, but the sensor they use is relatively nice. It's compact, it's out of the way, a lot nicer than those old ones with the magnets that you could see and could get bumped. And then there's that controller again. I think it's fairly well protected. The chain rings extend beyond it. It's black. It only sticks out a little bit, but that's going to help to dissipate some of the heat. We do have a kickstand here, which, again, real mountain bikes, they don't have kickstands, but this is more of like, again, trail bike, sort of an urban capable thing. As you pedal backwards, however, the crank arm collides with that kickstand. I'd prefer the kickstand to be mounted back there, but at least it has it. You could take it off if you want to. So I think for most people, it's going to be just fine. And it is adjustable length, which is nice. I think you could even add some fenders on this bike if you wanted to, and just really dialing it in. If you do go for a bottle cage, just be careful in terms of like your crotch standing over this thing, and then you could consider. What? Right? Gotta be careful out there, right? Always being safe, right? So there's also folding locks that you can put on, or you could do like a mini pump. There's a lot you can do, but one thing you can also do is just take these bolts out and just like make it as smooth as possible and give yourself that the lowest standover height possible. 30.9 millimeters on that seat post diameter, a little bit thicker, a little bit tougher. Some of the other Magnum bikes have 27.2. It's just skinny, and that's fine for urban, but for mountain, I'm glad they went with this. This is a Velo saddle, but it's branded Magnum. It looks nice. It has their like that same satin black with the blue accents. Really beautiful. Again, this bike looks cool, especially with the black. The battery blends right in, and the weight distribution is really good. So in the back, we were talking about the protection and stuff. This is 11 millimeter axle, a little bit thicker, a little bit tougher, but you will need tools to get that wheel off. And you're gonna need to disconnect the power cable and maybe cut a zip tie and then re-zip tie it later to keep it nice and clean like this. So try not to get a flat tire. That's what I'm saying. I mean, these Schwalbe Smart Sam tires are nice. They say performance, but I didn't see like green guard protection or those extra like thick layers. I think that the logos are semi-reflective, which would be nice at night. This doesn't have any integrated lights or anything. You could add your own little clip-on lights aftermarket, but just be careful, because I think this is a really good candidate for an urban machine, and it's just not as visible as a lot of their other bikes that have lights integrated and racks and fenders and everything. So I'm thinking about that. Hydraulic disc brakes that I talked about before. These Tektro levers are pretty good, 3-finger levers, and they are adjustable reach, so you can bring them in a little bit. Back to like whether you're a petite rider or a big rider, you can dial that in either case. Really nice to have that option. And then the cockpit. Let's go ahead and press this power button. The battery turns right on, gives us a lot of feedback. Capacity down here, 5 dots, as well as voltage. So voltage is something over time you can learn, like, what's the lowest voltage before the battery dies, and you can be a little more precise. I'd prefer this to just have a battery percentage, or maybe 10 dots instead of 5, so it's not 20% increments. That's a pretty big gap. There's a big difference between 1 dot being 20% or 0%, and you really don't know with that. The battery is multi-use too, so whether this is on or off the bike, you can use this little USB charging port on the side. And a lot of times I like to mount my phone up here, or maybe some little speakers or just extra lights or something, and you can connect right to this USB port. Your feet are mostly going to be out of the way, but it's a little bit vulnerable, and they do have 90-degree USB angle adapters on Amazon. They're really cheap, so you know, I might get one of those and just angle it upward and then keep the wires as tucked in as possible. Some of the cabling on this bike isn't as integrated as other electric bikes. Like, they'll have internally routed cables all the way through, and this is an e-bike specific frame. Like, they set it up right. I think it's capable in terms of strength and everything, but you'll notice that the cabling is fairly exposed right here. So if you're trying to hang this on a bike rack, it's not going to work as well. All the time, whenever I'm moving electric bikes, I use platform racks. They're more expensive, but they go into the hitch of your car. I put a hitch on my Prius. You can do it. I believe in you. But I take the battery off, make the bike as lightweight as you can. Maybe even if you're tossing it in the back of your station wagon, take that front wheel completely off and then turn the handlebars sideways, and see that would lay nicely in the back of your car. Always lay it on the non-drive side. So you see on this side, there's just less that could get bumped, but you still do have these big disc brake rotors. And if you bend those, then they're going to be like, wah, 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 like every time it gets annoying. I think you get the point. So anyway, back up here to the cockpit. I just like that the batteries, it gives you a little bit more options with that USB port. And then if you press the power button one more time, it turns on backlighting, which maybe you can see it. It's still pretty bright out right now. It's adjustable angle, but it's not removable. So if you were using this as a commuter, you could bring the battery pack into your office, which is sweet, because then you can charge it and keep it protected. Also keep it out of the heat. Extreme temperatures aren't great for lithium-ion batteries, but you can't take the display off. So the display is going to be out there taking some sun, maybe even taking some scratches if you're leaving this at the rack. So I'm going to unlock the battery, pull on this little handle, and lift. 9.2 pounds, fairly heavy, nice looking. It's got that little handle, so hopefully you won't drop it. That's what the frame looks like without it on. There we go. Oh boy. Callaway, will you help me with this? I don't want to tip. We had a bike tip earlier today. There we go. Make sure that it's on. There's a little bit of, you can put that on the display. A little bit of rattling here. Not too bad, you know, but it's something I think about as we're riding around. I'm going to put a camera on the bike and you can get an idea. There aren't fenders or other things to rattle around very much, but that battery that's the sensitive bit. So back up here to the display. Probably a good idea to turn it off before you remove the battery pack. Not sure we did that. Power indicator on the left, speed in the middle, assist levels on the right. So there are 6 levels and 0, which is just like throttle mode. But it goes all the way around. So we can go from 0 to 6 just by pressing -1. So you don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I love. Then down here we have odometer, trip time, trip meter. Over on the right we have the battery capacity. If you want, you can hold that minus button and it does walk mode. Look at that. It's a good opportunity to move that crank arm. So that's cool if you're like trying to get this up a hill, maybe a steep section where you don't feel comfortable riding, because it is a heavier bike. Depending on your skill level, it's okay to get off. But then pushing the bike versus letting the bike walk with you, walk mode is nice. There's also some other settings, and I think you can dial down the speed by entering the password and stuff and getting some help from Magnum directly, or hopefully your dealer. I think that's mostly it, right? We've looked at a lot of details on this bike. Callaway, do you have anything else to say about this bike, or things that maybe I've missed, or just thoughts?
No, you pretty much covered it. It's a really fun bike, for sure.
How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot.
6 foot. Okay, I'm 5'9", and I'm not standing on a hill here, so look how tall he is, right?
Yeah.
Which bike would you ride?
I was actually just riding the 27.5, and it was really fine. It fit me perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, so the 29er, some people just like that. You got the bigger wheels, and they just go over things, and there's this momentum aspect. I've slid out on 29ers because the wheels are bigger. So remember I mentioned how quick the smaller wheels can be. Do you have any thoughts just as a mountain biker on
Honestly, between the wheel size, it comes down to personal preference. If you like to roll over logs and rocks better, the 29er is going to be for you. If you want to snap around a little bit quicker, the 27.5 is going to be for you.
Or if you're shorter, right? You just have shorter legs. You have the saddle like super low. What's going on with that?
I was flying down this hill a minute ago, and so I put the saddle down.
Oh, so you wouldn't hit yourself. That's smart. Yeah. That's the other thing. Like really high-end mountain bikes have seat post droppers and stuff. Magura actually sells one now that's it's like wireless, so you press a button and it drops, and so that would be a nice little upgrade for this. Or a seat post suspension. So there's Thudbuster Body Float, Suntour has the NCX suspension post. It's really nice, lots of options. And some of your other bikes that we were looking at today, the Metro, they actually come with seat post suspension.
Suspension and seat posts on the other bikes as well, yeah.
So that turns it into like a full suspension feel, but having that droppability saves you just a few minutes if you don't want to do the quick release. It's not that big a deal though, guys, and again, the price point is a big selling point here. 1-year comprehensive warranty. It's pretty nice. I guess that's pretty good. I might hop on this for a minute and do like a little pedal assist example and show how responsive that is, and then I'm going to hand the bike off to Callaway. Actually, maybe you ride next to me.
Okay.
We'll just get out to the road. Yeah, if you want to take the 27.5. So I'm going to leave this in assist level 3, just so we don't get too carried away. I rolled my ankle earlier, so I'm just trying to be extra careful with it. We're up on the trail, so the throttle's over there. On some of their bikes, it's on the left, but, you know, the cockpit gets a little crowded, and it's pretty far out. You know, trying to reach that, it's a bit of a reach. I'm not a fan of that, but, again, at least it has a throttle. You could, you know, put your shifters in favor of the throttle, or you could potentially even move it over to this side if you wanted. It is adjustable, but in this position, it's just fairly out of the way because of this window here on those trigger shifters. So I think I'm just going to pedal. So since it's a cadence sensor, you really don't have to push. You just have to make sure those cranks are moving. And it works pretty well. There's a little bit of a delay, but it's not the end of the world. Great. Sweet. And that's that full power on the throttle. That gets you up to, you know, around 20 miles per hour. If you want to hit the really high speeds, you've got to do pedal assist. Okay guys, from here, hopefully you can listen for that cadence sensor activating, starting and stopping. It's actually pretty responsive. Just get an idea for how the shifting looks and maybe listening for some rattles. I'm going to start out on the street and then I'm going to go off-road for a bit. Smooth and quiet. And I'm in pedal assist level 1 right now, so I'm going to take it up to 6. A little bit louder. This is the highest gear right now, and I'm going 27 miles per hour. Really slow cadence. It's nice to have all those options. There's our 28. Solid stop. And now I don't want that pedal assist kicking in, so I'm going to go to 0 and just use the throttle. Try something a little different here. I've tried to level the camera relative to the incline. It's actually fairly steep, and I'm just going to throttle up and just see how that feels. It might not make it all the way without me pedaling. Again, I can't switch gears to empower the motor or give it a mechanical advantage. It's really only working with that wheel diameter, and I'm only 135 pounds. The point is you might have to pedal a little bit if it gets steep, but once you've got that momentum, the motor does pretty well. gonna do a little brake test here. Oh yeah. And then being able to lock that fork out, you're gonna stop the dive from happening. Also, I'm wearing pants and there's no chainring protector or chain guide. The derailleur actually kind of acts like a guide. But again, my experience with those, they can kind of get bumped out of position. Let's see. Do a little stability test here. Feels pretty good. That larger wheel diameter. Okay guys, you are in the expert hands of Callaway. He's gonna take you on a little adventure through the woods, have some fun. You're right by the motor, so you might hear it a little bit more, especially I think he might be riding in the higher levels of assist, shifting through and everything. Enjoy the view and just get a sense for what it's like. Again, it's very capable in pedal assist mode, just like, you know, most electric mountain bikes. The fact that it has a throttle is just a little bit of an extra. So here we go. Ride safe. How was it?
Oh, that was great.
Sweet, man. So Callaway just went and got the charger. This is what it looks like. 2 amps, about 1.5 pounds. I would call this just completely generic. It's about as heavy as most chargers. It's about as large. 2 amps is, it's enough. It's okay. You know, gets the job done. You know, with a larger pack like this, you got to spend a bit more time charging it, but you should get like 30 to 60 miles. Again, depending on the level of assist, if you're riding crazy like this guy. And you said something about the 29er after your ride. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the difference in the wheel size, you can definitely feel that when you ride both of them. The 29er rolls a lot faster than the 27.5. It's also a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, you've got the lower attack angle on the tires, so even the bumps and stuff might not feel quite as bumpy. You have more air volume and air compresses. So there's a lot of factors out there.
Yeah,
definitely. There's so many, you know. It's great that you guys have some more options now. I think that's cool. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, no problem.
And I have about a 31.5 inch inseam, and I'm resting kind of right there. All the measurements I take on the bikes are right in front of the nose of the saddle. So, you know, they do have that angled top tube. And it really makes the bike approachable, even if you aren't the tallest person in the world. Maybe you just like that like more stretched out feeling, or the stability of the slightly larger wheels. Kelly, I had a ton of fun just going out with you. I appreciate your help riding side by side. And
it was all fun.
yeah, for the full written review on both of these bikes, I'll see you back at Electric Bike Review. But keep in mind, the last time I reviewed the Peak, it didn't have the upgraded disc brakes or the bottle cage bosses. So they are constantly improving the products. You guys have that iterative improvements. I think that's it, you guys. I hope you have fun out there. Ride safe. Try to respect the trail laws. These are Class 3 bikes. Even if you dial down the speed, they're Class 2. So trying to ride around on places that are like, what's that, like off-highway vehicle, private property kind of stuff. Yeah. Or just being respectful, you know, wherever you ride. I think that's it. Have fun. Ride safe.